appreciate it. I mean, that's the question. SAA, SA Express, the post office now getting bailouts. Can we actually afford this?
No, certainly not. I think the pressure keeps on piling on national treasury. Remember, South African Airways, its problem started long ago in 2000 when they had a hedge book loss of about 6 billion when they're trying to hedge the fuel, jet fuel in 2000, 2003. So 6 billion was basically put as a loss to do that. Since then, year in, year out, it has been a bailout. In 2017, 10 billion. This year, Minister Mboweni talking about 5.7 billion. It is piling, but those are not the only state-owned entities that are getting bailout. You've got SABC itself, Eskom, Transnet at some stage got a bailout. But I think for Eskom also, you're looking to say that they haven't got the increase they were looking for in terms of tariffs.
So let's talk about how these bailouts actually work, because government says, well, you know, eventually we'll get it back and the companies will make money, the SOEs will make money, which ultimately comes back into the state. Is that the case?
Well, with South African Airways, it's proving to be wrong. Remember, we have had about 12 CEOs in the last 15 years or so since Andrew Coleman. So to get about 12 CEOs and each of them lasting an average of about 1.5 years. So there's no continuity from a strategic perspective. Now, the Treasury is now talking about writing off or impairing about 23 billion rand. So there's no sight that SA will basically recover anywhere, anytime in the near future. And hence you had the minister saying, you know what, let's not have emotions like Swiss SA.
Yeah.
You know, that basically the government just let off, and so it might just sink.
And then let's talk about the South African Post Office recently taking over the SAA payments, the grants. I mean, we all thought that they had the money and the capacity to do this, but now they need 2.9 billion rand to reduce debt levels.
So South African Post Office was also having a problem. Remember Mark Burns, who is the former MD of Standard Corporate Merchant Bank, volunteered. He had an open letter to say, well, he can take over the running of Post Office. And when the national security agents had discussions and fallout with the guys, CPS, who were offering the social grants payout, Post Office appeared to be the natural bank to take over, and certainly they wanted to convert it into a bank. But certainly I think, you know, it's not that easy. There have been lots of issues. They could not even deliver letters. Remember, I think they had a backlog of delivering letters to recipients. So it's going to be very tough, and I think, you know, it needs to be a gradual, and certainly I think from a systems perspective, from commitment perspective, I think Post Office is going to take as long to turn it around into a profitable, basically, entity, let alone to make it a national bank.
What about the option of going semi-private when it comes to SAA, SA Express and the Post Office? We've seen it with Telkom. It seems to be working, profitable.
Certainly, Telkom is not bleeding the government or the fiscus at all. I think SA Link and Mango, they just need to come back together. Because remember, these are all really just national or owned by government, where the shareholders government. So they need to be able to bring them together so they have got shared services. You see that in terms of just the technical support SA was offering to other airlines like Como Air, you know, they're talking about really doing it themselves and providing that service, which means, you know, they will be losing more revenue from a technical support perspective. So they need to measure, and I think Minister Mboweni mentioned that they need to measure SA Express and SA itself, and possibly even the low-budget carrier Mango, to say how do they share services to be able to reduce operating costs.
Now, let's look at these figures. 5 billion for SAA, 1.2 billion for SA Express, and the Post Office 2.9 billion. And the minister says already that our, of course, debt to GDP ratio is nearing that 60%, which is problematic.
Yeah.
How do we keep doing this when we're getting so close to that?
The good thing about age really is that, you know, people become honest when they get older. And like Minister Mboweni, he's getting very, very frank about the state of our finances in South Africa, and that once those GDP ratios, you know, start climbing in terms of our debt, starts climbing, certainly it's not good for the country, and we don't want to go and borrow and power more. We have lots of bonds that also are euro-denominated. And all those, when the rand weakens, they just pile pressure in terms of obligations for the country to pay. SA itself, by March next year, they need to pay about 14 billion. So the bailout still has to come, because between now and March next year, I don't see SA making 14 billion to pay. So National Treasury, yourself, through your taxes, you need to cough up again.
Yeah, it's unacceptable, I think. And I'm sure most citizens in the country think that as well. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. That was Joseph Busha from the JM Busha Investment Group.